Joining us now with more on the 2016 campaign trail, presidential candidate Mike Huckabee. Good morning and welcome, Governor.
Thank you very much, Sandra. Good to be with you today.
Yeah, great to have you, and thanks for waking up early with us. A new poll out yesterday shows Republican frontrunner Donald Trump giving up some of his overall lead as Carly Fiorina rockets to the number 2 spot. You're tied, sir, for 6th place with 6% of the vote. How will you close the gap between you and the GOP's top contenders?
It has all to do with time, organization, staying on the field, staying on your feet. The polls at this point don't really reflect where things are going to be when it comes springtime. I mean, let's just remember that summer blockbusters rarely win the Oscar. And I just think that sometimes we forget the history of presidential primaries. It is very rare that somebody who is at the top of the game right now is still going to be at the top of the game when votes are starting to be counted in Iowa after the caucuses.
By the way, Governor Huckabee, I wanted to also get to this, and I'm going to open things up to our guests here as well. But you also made news over the weekend. You issued a statement criticizing President Obama's nomination of the first openly gay U.S. Army Secretary, Eric Fanning. In that statement, you said, quote, "It's clear President Obama is more interested in appeasing America's homosexuals than honoring America's heroes." Do you stand by that this morning?
Sandra, I do. Listen, he may be very qualified for the job, and if he is, then nominate him because he's qualified to lead the Army, not because of his sexual orientation.
Well,
I just don't know what in the world that has to do.
is there any indication from the White House that they nominated him for this for any other reason other than his qualifications?
Well, why are they making such a big deal and talking about it? What difference does it make? I had people who were gay who worked on my staff, who have served in my administration when I was governor. I never went around saying, hey, I've got some homosexuals that are working for me. What's the point? If they're qualified, hire them, but hire them on the basis of qualification. My point is that a person's sexual orientation is not a qualification. And I just think this president is so into symbolism, so into trying to prove to everybody that he's this open-minded guy. Maybe he's trying to make up for the fact that until just, 3 years ago, he still took the position that many of us do, and that is that marriage, for example, is a biblical issue and that it is between a man and a woman. He had this sudden revelation that is not that way anymore. And I just feel like that the president has made this such an agenda. And the agenda for the military is to focus on the best qualified people because we're talking about life and death issues. And if he thinks Eric Fanning is the best for the job, nominate him. But leave his sexual orientation out of it.
Yeah, he is widely seen as very qualified for the job. Phil Carter was quoted in the Washington Post, an Iraq war veteran, senior fellow at the Center for New American Security, saying, "My sense is that the Army is over this and has been over it for quite some time. The Army cares whether you can shoot straight, not whether you are straight." But I want to move on, Governor. You have also recently been quoted saying the country needs a moral code. What did you mean by that?
Well, some things are right, some things are wrong. I think the people are so frustrated that they watch Congress and the corruption. They see the White House and the corruption. People openly lie to us. They steal from us in the name of doing it in the form of government. People have their Social Security checks threatened. For years, people work and they pay in, and now somebody says, well, we're not going to really honor that promise to you. Veterans get shot at. And they're promised that if they go to the military and serve, they're going to be provided with the health care that they have richly deserved. And then they come back missing arms and legs and are told they're going to have to wait for weeks or months, and that's why the suicide rate. We saw Obamacare. You can keep your doctor. You can keep your insurance. It's going to cost you $2,500 a year less. A moral code says you're going to be straight with people. You're going to quit lying to them, stealing from them, and you're going to quit feathering your own nest. The Wall Street to Washington axis of power, where the donor class feeds the political class, and it's all a nice dance, and that's why you don't see much change when even the Republicans get in power, because the same donors who feed one party feed the other one, and they do the bidding of the people who shell out the dollars.
Governor, I want to bring
that's corruption.
John Hilsenrath from the Wall Street Journal in.
Governor Huckabee, you heard Ben Carson in the quote leading into this. I wonder what's your view on this issue of whether the country is ready for a Muslim to be president. What do you think about that?
Well, there's no religious test for a person to hold public office in America. And I think it would depend on the individual. I don't think that we ought to just disqualify somebody because of his or her faith.
Do you think
whether
Ben
the person
Carson
is
was
a
out of
Muslim,
line
a
in what
Christian?
he said?
I'm not going to evaluate Ben Carson. You know, I'm going to let Ben Carson speak for himself. I'll speak for myself. One thing I've decided in this race, I'm not going to sit around and there, you know, my gosh, there's 15 other candidates still on the stage. And there's no point in me trying to evaluate their comments. I'm just trying to give a little bit of airing and light to mine.
All right, so Governor, here we are. We're sitting on a business program. It's early Monday morning, and I'm going to go back to something I've said often on this program and on Outnumbered on Fox News Channel. I've said that the man or woman who has voted to president of this United States this time around is going to be the most business-friendly person for this country, the one who creates an environment in which our economy can grow, jobs will grow. Are you that guy? How are you going to do that? Convince me.
Well, I think I am, because I'm the one person who believes that we shouldn't be punishing people for productivity. My advocacy for the overhaul of the tax system, where we pay tax at consumption, means you would pay zero tax on income, whether it's corporate or individual. It would be zero capital gains tax and tax on dividends and interest on savings.
What about the corporate tax rate? What are you going to do with that?
And tax on inheritance. You turn it to zero. Why should corporations don't pay tax? They collect the tax. They pass it on to their customers. It's nonsense to say, let's raise the corporate tax. All that does is make it harder for the end user, the consumer. The idea that we're going to bust these big corporations, that's nonsense, because all you're doing is you're making the prices more expensive for everyday consumers. So the best thing to do is stop taxing productivity, stop taxing labor and capital, because it's killing manufacturing in this country. It kills jobs. It pushes those jobs to places that are more tax friendly. And America ought to be the place where people come to do business. What's that?
Governor, it's Dagan. Good to see you. I would argue this. Then why haven't you talked about that more and really upending the tax code and talked about the economy rather than making gay marriage, which based on the Supreme Court's decision is legal in this country, rather than that, making that, and whether someone appointed by President Obama talking about his sexuality, making those issues centerpieces of your campaign rather than the economy?
Oh, I do. If you would come to one of my town halls, Dagan, that's what you would hear me talk about. But what did you guys ask me about when I first came on? You asked me about Ben Carson. You asked me about my comments on Eric Fanning. And I'm just surprised you didn't ask me about Donald Trump. When I go to the debates, I don't get to select the questions.
Governor, what do you have to say about Donald Trump? I mean, he's still at top of the polls. He's leading the conversation.
I don't have anything to say about Donald Trump.
You said you were disappointed.
My gosh, you guys are giving all the helium to his balloon. He doesn't need me to talk about him. Gosh, that's the problem.
What do you make of Carly Fiorina's rise in the polls, Governor? What do you make of Carly Fiorina's rise?
I don't think about it at all. I think about Mike Huckabee's candidacy for president.
Right, last word, last question.
You want to talk about the consumption tax. Tell us how gasoline taxes fit into that. Do you think there should be a greater tax on gasoline right now in exchange for lower taxes on income?
Not necessarily. I do think we need to change. John, I think we need to change our energy policy. We need to become the greatest exporter. If we really want to change the balance of world power, what we ought to be doing is exploring the fact we've got hundreds of years of energy under our feet in coal, gas, and oil. We need to be pumping it out. We need to be challenging the marketplaces in Europe, Asia, and Africa. We need to put Putin, Iran, and the Saudis out of business in the energy market, put Americans to work in the energy industry, and change the balance of world power, because the only way that the Iranians, Russians, and Saudis have the resources to do nefarious deeds is they have energy money. Let's change that marketplace.
All right, Republican presidential candidate Governor Huckabee, thank you for joining us this morning, Governor.
Nice to be with you guys.